A convoy of truckers and their supporters have been rolling through highways across the country. The group is protesting a federal vaccine mandate that came into effect January 15th, and it requires unvaccinated or partially vaccinated truck drivers crossing the Canada-U.S. border to quarantine for 14 days.
The COVID pandemic started 2 years ago. There was a lot of concern for health, obviously, and got to a point where you're kind of wondering where things are going and why we're doing some of the stuff we're doing. You kind of go, yeah, there's something not right here. This is not good for society in a lot of ways. Yeah, COVID happened. We can't deny that. But at the same time, there's other things you need to consider. And it seemed like the government wasn't doing that. And then as you got farther and farther into the so-called pandemic, you started to realize, yeah, there is something wrong here. And there's a lot of people in the community that are, losing their jobs, losing their freedom to travel. And even as a business, having drivers that can't cross the border anymore, doctors losing their job because they disagree with what's going on. You realize, yeah, there's something wrong here. And then when we heard about the convoy going to Ottawa, as a trucker for 27 years, it's like, yeah, this is something that can make a difference. Like, I've been to protests in Toronto and Niagara Falls, but at the end of the day, everybody has to go home. And the governments can very easily just ignore that and continue on with their agenda. So I thought, talk to our partners here at Jonker Trucking, and we this is something that we should take part in. And because I had more of the time and freedom in my schedule to sign up as captain, I did so. And as soon as I signed up, I realized, wow, this is the right thing to do. Getting phone calls, emails from the community right across the country, it was just mind-boggling how many people were so excited to see something like this finally happening. So that really reaffirmed to me that our society was looking for hope.
The reason that myself and my brothers decided to join the cause, and of course my wife as well, was a strong disbelief in segregation. It's not how we're meant to be. It's not how we're meant to live. We have friends that have been fired from their nursing jobs, and of course, for ourselves, not able to cross the border, which is mostly what we do. Just can't accept it.
When we signed up, right, we were busy getting all ready. The day we showed up in Fort Erie at the truck stop there at our first stop, it was already, oh wow, I can't even count how many trucks are here in an hour. Then we pulled into Niagara-on-the-Lake for our second stop, and it was just like breakfast being served to us. The truck stop was just full. When we pulled out onto the QEW, I made a phone call to the liaison in Hamilton with Hamilton Police. The sergeant actually asked me, "Hey, Harold, how many trucks do you have? How many vehicles?" I'm like, I have no idea. And he was just like, I beg your pardon? I says, I have no idea. It might be 100, it might be 200, it might be 400. I had no idea. And he says to me, I might have to close down Centennial. It is full of your supporters. It's getting to a point where it's going to be dangerous for you to come in. So I said to him, listen, does it make sense if I leave the convoy out on the side of the highway on the shoulder and I come in with my truck and a pickup with a trailer to pick up all the food that people had organized and called me the week before saying they were bringing it there? Does that make sense? And he goes, yeah, that actually makes sense. So when I pulled off at Centennial, I had tears in my eyes. I looked over at my wife and I'm like, now I understand what the sergeant was talking about. Like, it's a 4-lane road, 2 lanes each way, and only 1 lane was open. The rest were full of people. I was actually a little concerned because I'm trying to drive through this crowd and people are trying to give me high fives through the window. It was just unbelievable. The excitement, the joy, the just how many people were there just blew me away. I couldn't believe it. Like, Hamilton, to me, that bridge will be a memory that I'll have in my mind my lifetime.
So when we got to Ottawa, the cops, they lined us all up. They told us all where to park. My brother was the first truck in to Ottawa on the Friday, and he was talking with the police regularly. So they guided him right into Coventry Road. They guided other trucks up onto Wellington. Just went where they told us to go. And we didn't block anything off. What I always keep thinking, that's so funny, because there was always a lane open. With all roads, there was always a lane open. It might have been a 3-lane road and only 1 lane open, but that just slows you down. You can still get to work. And there was a few roads blocked off by concrete barriers. Truckers didn't put concrete barriers up. I'm pretty sure they came in with municipal loaders, so they blocked their own city off, which is crazy.
I went down intending to get parked in such a way that I could raise the boom with a flag. Just figured it'd be kind of cool. So when we finally did get parked, that's what I did the first night, and I raised the flag in the middle of the road, and it was beautiful. It was the amount of people that were there, and just looking forward to meeting all the trucks that came in. Yeah, it was awesome. The organizers had planned to build a stage on the front lawn of Parliament. So they had permits, they had everything lined up. So the next day when they went to bring in the equipment or the material to build a stage, their permits were all of a sudden no good. And so that's where later on in the day, they came and found me, and they asked me to come up front, right in front of Parliament. Prime real estate. So that's how I got up front.
You hear that, Justin Trudeau? Canadians have stood up. Canadians have lit the fire. Canadians are leading the way. And there's nothing that's going to stop us. In fact, we've already won.
As the week went on, we ended up getting security. But up until then, it was just me and my brother-in-law, and we had to make sure none of the crazies came up on, people get excited and they do some things they wouldn't normally do, but I got in contact with, some of the guys that were on the ground there, and they brought some security up, and it was a good time. The environment there was just unreal. Like, I would have, I could have watched videos and I'd have no idea what the environment was really like. You can't even describe it with words how beautiful the 3 weeks were.
I believe we're on very solid ground in protesting the government overreach on our Canadian human rights, on our international human rights. Our focus is very solid in saying enough. It's time to take back that freedom that we have. I came because I have grandchildren that I'm very concerned about, and I want people to have the ability to go to work and feed their families, do what they need to do. And government has to understand that this is not their prerogative. We're here to protect what we've already fought for and what's already enshrined in our Bill of Rights. That's it.
I've never experienced so much love in my life, man. Like, I've had people of all creeds, colors, religions, genders, everybody coming up thanking me for being here, coming together as Canadians, Albertans and Quebecers getting along, like unprecedented stuff, man. Like, this is unbelievable.
I see it with my own eyes here. That's the most peaceful protest I've ever seen in my lifetime. I'm from East Germany. So, and I grew up in the biggest prison on earth until '89, and I was in front with all the other thousands and thousands of people. They opened up, and East and West Germany reunited. So it's my second stand for freedom and for liberty and for the kids, for everybody. Otherwise, there will be no future. There is no end. They are mandating. It's criminal in my mind. Many of the police officers, they are not against us. And when they come home after a long day and being around us, they even tell their own families, say, don't watch the media anymore because I'm there and there's nothing going on than just bringing hope, smiling faces. They want to arrest everybody here? I have no idea. And what is the charges? You're being arrested for as a peaceful protester, and I have no idea what happens. But they're spreading a lot of rumors around, and harassment it's intense. I had to quit my job to protect the name of the company that I'm with, contracted, used to be. And because they're getting threatened, emails, and the whole company will be put out and the license revoked and everything, just because the name is on the trailer. And I told them I cannot go. It's not the time yet. But let everybody know I'm not working in the interest of the company anymore. And protect your name, and that's what it is. And I even said if somebody can bring a truck and pull the trailer away, and I cover the door with a. So it's that far. It's really very dirty mind games, and unbelievable what is going on against us.
We are peaceful convoy. We're gonna stay peaceful until to the end. We are not here to treat anybody bad. I heard that we go to elderly people and take the mask off. It's just a lie what national TV is saying. Even if somebody show us a finger, we tell them we love you guys. Because it's their choice to be like that, and it's my choice to be here. And that should be the country. Everybody, they should have a choice.
So I got people calling me from home asking me if I'm okay, and I don't know why they're asking that, because I mean it's just like a big block party here. It's a very positive, happy, friendly atmosphere. We're just here. We just want our freedoms back. We were born in a free country, and we'd like to continue to live in a free country. And if we don't do something and protest these mandates and get these mandates dropped, we're not going to be in a free country anymore. You guys will learn about this in school later, and you guys can say, I was there.
Yeah, this is going to change your future.
You betcha it is.
I love it.
I love it too.
Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks for all the support.
Hi, I'm Fraser. Been here for about a week, sleeping in my car, rent-free in front of Supreme Court of Canada, Justice Center, and loud neighbors, but it's for a good cause, okay? It's for freedom, it's for love, it's for peace, it's for freedom of choice. Yes, we may be annoying, but it's been 2 years of coercion, and we're done with it, okay? We want you to be free. We love you.
We all know that whether or not you get an injection, you can transmit it. Our Prime Minister proved that by getting COVID as soon as the truckers got here.
2 of my own children have now contracted it. And this morning, I learned I tested positive for COVID-19 as well. I feel well and have no symptoms. Of course, I'll be working remotely this week and will keep following public health guidelines. I want to take this opportunity to remind Canadians to please get vaccinated.
So, first time I ever saw the shed was I went out to an overpass like many people did, and I went and stood on the overpass. I heard that people were going to be there, and there was a couple hundred people there, and I was blown away right from the start. Was just there waving a flag, and I saw the shed truck go by on the way to Ottawa, thinking like, hey, that looks cool, but I didn't know Jay, the owner of the truck at the time, but I decided I got to head to Ottawa, like many others. So I headed down to Wellington Street. I wanted to get involved and to help, so I started jumping in trucks, and one of the first trucks I jumped into was the shed truck, and me and Jay hit it off real quick and became fast friends. So I started working, sort of basing out of the shed became our little base of operations, and we were just trying to pull people together. We started off meeting with maybe half a dozen truckers from that area at the start, and everyone was equally confused as to what was going on. And so we were trying to just get information, share information, communicate with each other, help each other. And someone got the bright idea to stick a platform up on the top of the truck, and it served as like a media stage. And that evolved into getting people up there and like doing interviews. So there was a group of us were doing like just little Instagram videos and whatnot. And everything, as people will know, that everything that was filmed downtown just started like blowing up because everyone wanted to see what is really happening here. We don't trust the mainstream media. We want to know what's really going on. And I saw so much misinformation from the mainstream media every night going home to the hotel I was staying at and seeing just the downright lies that were being presented by the news. So that was just further inspiration of like, we need to alter this narrative. We need to tell the truth of what's really going on down here. And if you guys would stop with the fear and the polarization and just actually start these conversations and talk to people, you would see that these are good people. People who've been deeply hurt by this whole thing continue to be out of work. The people who've been canceled and they're just been pushed away from their families, from their communities, all because they had a different viewpoint. I think if people really understood the hurt, they really understood what these individuals have gone through, they could maybe not agree even with where they fall with their decisions, but they could understand why they have that hurt and why they believe that the government was not listening to them and why they want to see change in that way.
We are not violent. You can feel the love in the air, man. You know, so we are here to change some rules, make this country better. And also, you know what, I always been told, aim high. So we are not here to change only our life in Canada into a better. Let's go for the entire planet, you know? Yeah. So I don't know who's gonna watch this, but citizen of the planet, let's raise and change the world, man. Let's clean up evil and all this garbage around us.
I'm here for the same reason as everybody else that's here. Our government's been out of control with overreach and infringing upon our God-given rights as Canadians, as people, as humans. And it's come to the point where we have to stand up and fight for those rights once again. It's not the first time in history. It's not going to be the last time. So we're here to stand up to that. And we're hoping to make a change. I think we're already making a change.
So I'm so proud. I'm first generation Polish. This is a second generation Polish young man. I fought during the Solidarity movement in Poland in 1981. I was arrested twice, being 16 and 17 years old young woman. And right now I'm so proud, not only because they're Polish, but I'm so proud that young generation finally have balls and they stand up for the freedom, okay? Just this constipated Ottawa, bureaucratic city has to be done once for good, okay? We support freedom, and we freedom are fighters from Poland. You know, we have one thing, wolność. God bless you. Thank you.
We want to see the change so that the next generation can, experience the freedoms we grew up knowing and loving. And we didn't see any misogyny, no racism. There was no anger, there was no violence. It was just heaven on earth. The energy was supreme. And there are no words. And it's hard to explain because you want to go relive it. But that was a once in a lifetime opportunity. And I think it woke up not only the nation, but the world.
I don't know how to explain the feeling, and never had that feeling in my entire life. The unity, everybody, the oneness, everyone together. It was like this euphoric feeling. There was so much love, and it was just unbelievable. The propaganda the media was spitting, unbelievable. I've never seen it like that at that heightened level, calling people racist and misogynist. We never even experienced any of that 1 second that we were there. So, we try to tell people, come out there and see it for yourself. Like, stop listening to the news, turn it off, and be free.
With regards to everything the media said, everything they propagated, it's all lies. And the politicians know, and they will be held accountable. Because now everyone that's awake is now going to look to keep things transparent and hold the people that they've elected for office, the public servants, accountable. Because these guys like to walk around the city and the country when they need votes, begging people, vote for us, this is our platform. Well, guess what? We're now going to put every single one of you to work, because you guys work for the people of the nation, and we're going to hold you to that. And you guys better pull up your socks, tighten up your bootstraps, because we're coming. And not just us, a whole country is coming to your doorstep.
What I saw is that for, over a year, nothing had changed. And there was a specific narrative that was coming down the pipes, and people were being bullied, they were losing their jobs, they were being denied from education. And when that convoy came together, to see the images of all those trucks converging on Ottawa showed that there are people out there who believe in this so much, they will drop everything they're doing in the name of humanity. And it was such a powerful visual that I think it gave everybody hope. It made everybody realize no matter what they do, we will find a way to resist the narrative or the false narrative or the tyranny, and we will stand together. So I think that's the legacy, is that you can create a movement and it can happen in a short period of time and be successful, because it did stave off a lot of future things that were happening. What people can learn from it is that you just have to insert yourself sometimes. Again, goes back to my earlier message. You can't sit back and expect things to happen without your effort. Everybody has a part to play.
I've been a nurse since 2004, and I worked in long-term care in a nursing home for most of my career. I loved being a nurse, but when the government said that they were going to shut down the entire economy to protect these people, a big red flag went up in my head, because when you work in a nursing home, you're kind of aware that the government doesn't care about those people. So what happened in nursing homes, they stopped families from coming in. So a lot of my residents started deteriorating right away. I had a resident that died within a week of a heart attack. She had heart problems, and every day when I came into work, the first thing I would do is call her daughter to know what time her daughter was coming, because to her it was really, she would have a lot of anxiety, and her daughter would come every day. And so that woman deteriorated really fast, did not understand. They don't understand. Sometimes there's language barriers too. They didn't understand what was going on, actually. They thought they were being abandoned, some of them. So families come in and help us feed the residents. So a lot of residents, I say a lot, but several residents stop eating, and the failure to thrive. They don't want to live anymore. That's all they have is their families. So I started feeling like I had to advocate for that. And so I spoke out for the first time at Dundas Square. It was October 31st, it was Halloween. And I spoke for the first time, and within 3 days I got fired. So that was the start of the journey.
The masks have a grave effect on our children. So we're seeing speech pathologists, speaking out about vocabulary going down, speech impediments. They can't see faces. Heard of stories of babies in the NICU that, sometimes our babies are there for 100 days. And all they would be seeing is, masked parents and, the hospital staff. So when they go home and the masks finally come off, they can't stop crying until the mask goes on. And that is why I spoke out as loudly as I did. And little did I know how many actually wanted masks on kids, because that was another flood of reports to my college about me. I was suspended indefinitely, placed under investigation by our college. I was pretty broken at that time. It was just a lot. It was a huge hit for my family, just how public everything went. My reputation, character was destroyed in the community. And it was really hard. So I found another nurse in Toronto that was speaking out, Sarah Shajunian. So I kind of, grabbed her and just was like, we have to keep doing this together. From that point on, we formed Canadian Frontline Nurses. And we decided we were going to, continue to advocate for our communities, because that's what we're told to do. When we see harms and injustice happening, we're supposed to speak out for, the voiceless and those that aren't able to. So we held, the first ever protest in front of the College of Nurses of Ontario, let them know that we're not scared, we're not going to let them bully us. And we, from there, have formed rallies, we've spoken out, we drove across Canada to bring awareness. We held, the hospital rallies this fall that went all across Canada, September 1st. It was some of the biggest turnouts that these events had ever seen. I think in Vancouver alone, they had 10,000 people show up to their hospital to support the healthcare workers. Of course, with that, anytime we have success, the media has to slander it and put an end to it. So the same message was spread out that all across Canada, that we interfered with ambulance access to emergency, we stopped cancer treatments from happening, and we assaulted healthcare workers. And so that was the same message across Canada. And that was probably the most threats that we got on our journey. And I don't know if it's also because we've been at it longer, more people knew about us, but our addresses were doxxed. People, death threats, the whole works after that, the hospital event. So we took some time off and then tried to figure out our next, step, what we were going to do. Thank goodness, finally, the trucker convoy happened. And, that was, several months later, mid-January, but it just reignited a lot of hope, I think, in us, and gave us a lot more momentum and reminded us what we, had started and why we must continue to do what we're doing. It was just, I have never felt that much love in a single place for that amount of time. It's hard to describe, really, unless you're there. It was just the most amazing thing I'd ever witnessed.
I'm Pastor Henry Hildebrand of the Church of God in Elmer, Ontario. One thing that we became famous for is drive-in services. So we just knew we want to do something. So we would gather in the parking lot. People would stay in their cars with the windows rolled up. Signs were along the driveway saying that don't get out of your car. And the police showed up and they showed thumbs up and they said, looks excellent, good invention. We complied as much as we knew how, and then we were back in the building, and then they told us that we could only be like, 10 people and 20 people or whatever. Well, none of that worked for us because we're a very close-knit community, and by that time, we knew, and maybe I should say half the world knew already, that there was something very wrong with this narrative. That it just didn't add up. Red flags were all over the place, and then amazingly enough, the police showed up and disrupted our services not once or twice. They did that repeatedly, and they did that under the guise over there, or they said, well, it's illegal that you're here together. We have to basically let you know that you can't gather. And then the judge ordered that they would lock our building, which they did. The sheriff came, and we were inside, we were singing, we were praying, and the sheriff led the whole crew in. They came in, and we told them that biblically that we're not bowing to that, that we're just like the people in the Bible time would have done. We are not bowing to that. And then they actually changed the locks on us, and then they forbade us that we couldn't even gather outside. And we said at that point, well, you do whatever you need to do. The judge then ruled charged us one time 66,000, another 100 and some odd thousand, till it added up to $275,000. I said, then we will let the whole world know that they are charging us that, which we did. We told everyone that there was fines out there for $275,000. Many people by that point had offered us worldwide, had said, if you have to pay those, we will help. And it's exactly what happened. Is within a short time, 275,000 came together, like I said, from all over the world. Within a couple of months, we paid those fines. That's where it is to this day. We have paid those. And we don't regret one step we've taken, because it needed to be done, because those are our God-given freedoms, and not just for the churches, but for everyone. Those are our guaranteed freedoms in the Charter. But as you know, these days, past 2 years, the Charter hasn't meant anything. They have trampled on it. We saw that in Ottawa. We see that everywhere else. We saw what they did to the frontline workers. At first, they praised them and held them in high esteem, and then when it was their turn, then they came after them. So the cry of the truckers rapidly became the cry of the whole world, or the whole world joined in, because it was a cry of oppression. It wasn't just the mandates. It was a cry of oppression to this day. I have never seen, never heard, never experienced what happens when a community stands together like we saw at the convoy. And the amazing thing, or I should say that the most troubling thing, was that right behind us there, right across the fence from inside the Parliament building, our Prime Minister was speaking, and he's saying all these things that are not true.
We know the way through this pandemic is by getting everyone vaccinated. And the overwhelming majority, close to 90% of Canadians, have done exactly that. The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa, or who are holding unacceptable views that they're expressing, do not represent the views of Canadians who have been there for each other, who know that following the science and stepping up to protect each other is the best way to continue to ensure our freedoms, our rights, our values as a country. Hate can never be the answer. Over the past few days, Canadians were shocked and frankly disgusted by the behavior displayed by some people protesting in our nation's capital. I want to be very clear. We are not intimidated by those who hurl insults and abuse at small business workers and steal food from the homeless. We won't give in to those who fly racist flags. We won't cave to those who engage in vandalism or dishonor the memory of our veterans.
I was there. I was there for 3 weeks. There was nothing. I went and looked at the War Memorial. It was guarded. I looked at the Terry Fox statue there. It was guarded nonstop and highly, highly respected. As a matter of fact, the Ottawa police confirmed that in the 3 weeks there was never one single arrest because there was an issue. There was no issues. The police actually themselves said during the week, and I'm sure they got in trouble for it, the police said at some point, they said, these are self-regulating people. These people actually don't need police. There was nothing needed. I mean, in the middle of their partying, in the middle of their staying up late at night, there was never any issue whatsoever. The truckers' convoy will go down in history, and no one can stop it. It'll go down in history as a very, very peaceful convoy that spoke for the whole world.
My name is Josephine, and it's my second time here, and I come for the moral uplifting of it all. I think it's incredible that all these people, all these Canadians from all over have come to this place, and it's just like, it's the best, like, Canada Day. It's like, you know, better than Canada Day. Yeah, better than Woodstock. This is like Woodstock times 10.
I guess one thing that I really felt from the convoy was that the truckers really inspired and galvanized people so that it was no longer a vaccine versus no vaccine argument. People realized that this is about our freedoms, this is about our choice, whether you believe in the vaccine or not, that everybody has the right to choose what goes in their body, especially considering that there is an experimental vaccine that has only gotten emergency use authorization, meaning it's not fully approved yet.
Through the whole convoy, there was this obsession from our media and from our politicians of painting it with a certain brush. There was this talk of wanting to overthrow the government, talk of violence and crimes being committed.
There's serious concerns going on. Obviously in Ottawa, people are going through a really horrible situation where it's clear that the stated intent of this convoy is to overthrow the government. It's in their memorandum of understanding. It's clear they're not hiding away from it. And they are harassing citizens. They are threatening people, assaulting people, and recent examples of setting fire to a building because they're fed up with the noise.
We have already seen, as I said, some expressions which fall very much into the category of extremism, the flying of Confederate flags.
I don't accept their right to protest under a Nazi flag. I mean, I don't know how much more disgusting you can get to try and compare the murder of 6 million Jewish men and women and children, 1.5 million children thrown into gas chambers, medically experimented upon, and say that somehow that's the same thing as a government wanting to give you a life-saving vaccine.
All evidence seems to point that these people were plants or agitators. That makes far more sense than any other person from within the convoy. But even if it was a supporter, all the other people around them were condemning what they were doing. If you actually see the footage, they were trying to block these people out. They were trying to rip the flags away from them.
Now he's going. Now he's gone. We called him out. He knows. He's going to hold his head in shame now.
There was never anybody walking around in balaclavas, hiding their faces, until that guy showed up.
For there to be one ridiculous person who might be an agitator or a plant, but even if they weren't, for one ridiculous person who the majority tried to shut down and block, to be highlighted as somehow speaking for this movement is just terrible journalism. It's dishonest. This ongoing thing that they still talk about now of stealing from homeless shelters. I dug into that a lot. A lot of people did. Zero evidence that ever occurred, and no evidence has ever been presented that ever occurred. And most of these drivers, you need to understand, who went to Ottawa, a large number of them were owner-operators or there with the support of their businesses. These are not like poor people. They're working class people, and a number of them, if they're able to own a rig that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, they're not begging or stealing food from a homeless shelter. In fact, a lot of these guys eat really well, and they were hard to give free food to, because I'd be out on the streets trying to give away food, and they'd, no, someone else needs it. No, I don't need it. Or I just ate, like, we're good. They'd sooner go out for a steak dinner than try to get food from a homeless shelter. And in fact, it was so laughable because we were dropping off loads and loads of food at the homeless shelters. It was the point where some of these shelters and various service organizations had to turn the food away. We had more than we knew what to do with, and then we filled up their storehouses, and they had more than they knew what to do with, so they had to start turning away donations. There was food. Well, you can see in the live streams, there's tractor trailer beds covered in free food, camper vans with piles of food outside that said, take it, it's free. There was more food going bad and freezing than we knew what to do with. Tons of food was actually being thrown out because it couldn't get eaten in time.
The amount of food that was out on the streets in Ottawa, there was no reason for anybody to steal anybody's food. We literally had trailer loads of food. And I'm pretty certain the homeless have never been fed as well as they were when we were in Ottawa. One thing that I just kind of found humorous is somebody in the media had said that we had a wrecking ball, out in front of Parliament. It's funny because the weight on the end of my cable is a paperweight compared to what a wrecking ball would be, that is what it is. It's just to keep tension on the line. It's by no means to use for damage or for demolition or whatever. So just nonsense stories. Some of the things that came out on mainstream media.
Another story that was often shared, accusations about attempts to burn down an apartment building. I mean, very early on, we all knew that that's like nonsense. And then sure enough, it came out. The police said that it had nothing to do with us. And yet that story was still run with. And this is what we saw throughout the convoy and continue to see to this day of lies that were told by the media, even if they were retracted later. It's seeds that are planted and fires that are stoked for anger and division, and those continually are used to split this country apart and to paint people they disagree with as the enemy.
We remembered what it was like to be Canadian. I felt proud to be Canadian, and Canada's known for multiculturalism. We felt that down on those streets in Ottawa. The unity, the love, the kindness, the generosity. There was no discrimination. Everybody was included. Everybody was welcomed. Everybody was loved. I've never seen so many grown men hug and cry and kiss each other in my entire life. We'll never experience anything like that again, ever. And that definitely terrified our government, because at home, people were seeing the news that was talking about Nazi flags and Confederate flags, and people were coming to Ottawa, experiencing Ottawa, and then going home, turning on their TVs and seeing these lies and hearing these lies. And it wasn't computing. They were like, no, none of that was going on. So they would tell their friends none of that was going on. And the following weekend, double the number would show up because everybody wanted to see, was the mainstream media telling us the truth? Was our PM telling us the truth? And they all discovered that none of what they were seeing on TV was real.
And the reason we do clinical trials for 3 to 5 to 7 years is because we don't know what we don't know.
I was not allowed to prescribe ivermectin or hydroxychloroquine. The rest of the world has been able to benefit from those two medications. Countries like Japan, Mexico, Argentina, Brazil have been able to benefit from using it suitably. We in Canada should be allowed to prescribe, doctors should be allowed to prescribe hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin.
Some very serious scientists were there, willing to talk and willing to debate with Dr. Tam and others as to the actual fair logistics of the pandemic response. And Dr. Hodgkinson, Dr. Bridle, and Dr. Alexander were there, all three of them quite willing to debate in public, but we were rebuffed. The chairs that they were to debate were left empty. The government statisticians and government biologic folks were not willing to come and have the debate. And so we have to have the debate in these fashions and in these ways. It's unfortunate, but that's the way it was. We were ignored.
The main message has always been, you strongly protect the elderly in your society, and you allow the rest of the society, the young children, the infants, the young persons, the teenagers, the young adults, the middle-aged adults, well, healthy people, you allow them to live largely unfettered lives. You do not lock the society down. You do not close schools. We never should have done this. And that was a catastrophic failure by the federal government of Canada and a catastrophic failure by Doug Ford and the provincial government. At all levels of government, we harmed people with these lockdowns. And we studied it, and we have shown, I have published in AIER, I have published in Brownstone, I've researched with many global scientists, and we've shown that lockdowns killed thousands of people beyond the virus. School closures killed many children. And we could find not one society in this world, not one country, not one setting where any lockdown worked to curb transmission or reduce the risk of death. I also recently published again on the masks. I looked at 150 studies that showed that the masks are worthless. They're ineffective. They just do not work, period. There's no ifs, ands, or buts.
The history of this madness is quite interesting, and I'll briefly go over that so you can understand the big picture of how we got here and why we're still here and how we can get out of this mess. Fauci, the most vile man walking. Fauci led a contract for gain-of-function research in Wuhan because he couldn't get anyone to do it anywhere else because it was prohibited. So it was secretly done in Wuhan. Gain-of-function is the maddest thing that's going on in medicine right now. Gain-of-function is based upon the bizarre concept that if you make a virus intentionally more dangerous, more infectious, etc., and you study that, what happens with that in animals, that somehow you can devise better treatments. It's so incredibly stupid and crazy and dangerous, worse than the threat of nuclear war. This vaccine was brought in with warp speed because the actual mechanism of delivery had already been worked out over a decade. All they had to do was package these little particles with the right mRNA in order to create this very experimental new product. You've got to understand that vaccines, normal vaccines, without even this brand new technology, take a 5 to 10 year time to come to market. That's a long time. And we do clinical trials in medicine for a very simple reason. We don't know what we don't know. We're looking for unexpected things. And, well, guess what? Unexpected things did start happening.
We defined for ourselves a long time ago what's too dangerous, because we said that a 1 in 55,000 risk of a potentially harmful blood clot was too dangerous for Canadian adults. Again, I'd like to emphasize that 1 in 55,000. So if 1 in 55,000 Canadian adults were at risk of getting a serious blood clot, we declared that too dangerous. So you just have to ask yourself, if you're running a study then with 1,400 children, what are your chances of detecting something that occurs in 1 in 55,000 children, right? I mean, it's just common sense. It's just common sense. These trials were not designed to identify things that can happen in our children that are too dangerous for adults, let alone children, which are at even lower risk. In the context of the original variants for which these vaccines were designed, the vaccines completely and utterly failed in their goals. When it came to hospitalizations and deaths, their own data showed there was no, what we can say, as a scientist we can say, that the statistical analysis tells us there was no statistically significant benefit of the Pfizer vaccine in reducing hospitalizations or deaths. And so we don't even need to talk about the children, because what that tells you is now we're talking about the Omicron variant, and for which these vaccines are now massively outdated. So not only with children, these vaccines make no sense whatsoever and never did for anybody, adults and children alike.
The important thing to realize is that North American science spent 15 years figuring out what to do with the next COVID. It was back 2002, 2003, the original SARS-CoV-1 occurred. And so all sorts of experiments went on to determine what would be a useful response were something similar to occur. And the research was done. Research was all done by 2015, 2016. And DARPA, D-A-R-P-A, the American research arm of the US military, it specifically knew and specifically recommended and passed the information on to the CDC that ivermectin in particular was the absolute #1 product to be used in the event of a coronavirus pandemic. It was fully known that ivermectin, and certainly hydroxychloroquine as well, were highly antiviral and immune modulatory. And those two things were the key, to modulate the immune response, plus to be antiviral as well. Those elements were both totally proven in vitro and in vivo with animals so that it was known. And of course, we knew it was completely safe for humans because these medications had been used for 35 to 40 years in humans. And so that's what was sitting there ready to be used at the next pandemic. Didn't happen because certain people didn't want it to happen. Certain other people had a different agenda.
There always was safe prophylactic and early treatment that has been suppressed, ridiculed, just like anybody who spoke any sort of truth. And the main thing that you realize is that there's such overwhelming data and studies and evidence to show that this pandemic never should have happened. It should have been stopped in its tracks with the available treatments. But again, they were all suppressed for this agenda to roll out this one-trick pony, this one-size-fits-all vaccine that we know has negative efficacy through Pfizer's own data, and that we're seeing through the epidemiological data now, and the explosion of all these unknown deaths that are happening, excess mortalities being reported in the UK, being reported in Alberta just recently, as well as the insurance companies all talking about, a 10% increase in excess deaths is an aberration. But we're looking at up to 40, 50, 60% being reported around the world.
And if we take that 40%, that sounds pretty drastic, sounds pretty nasty, right? Well, I'm going to hold something up for you that shows, yes, there was a 40 or 44% increase under Davison, who was the insurance exec. But since then, Edward Dowd on the second line has discerned that 84 to 168% increase in the lower age group, 20 to 45. Their death rates took a massive jump in the second half of 2021 and continue to take a massive jump with the utilization of the vaccines. In the 15 to 19-year-olds, in which a British study, looking carefully at the first people to receive the vaccines, it was not open to the general population quite yet, but there were some volunteers who took it. And that volunteer group showed that it was a 400% increase, a fourfold increase in 15 to 19-year-olds of deaths. And then we go to the younger children still, the 10 to 14-year-olds. Unbelievable. 52-fold, 5,200%. 5,200% elevation in their all-cause mortality if they had the double vax compared to those who got zero vax. If you had a drug that was producing a 5,200% increase in all-cause mortality, that drug would be withdrawn yesterday.
Okay, Stacy Dunford, age 36, Moderna, second dose. Epilepsy, severe migraines, tremors, brain fog, and chronic fatigue syndrome. Nikki Ann Holland, age 38, Moderna, second dose. Intubation, respiratory failure, systemic inflammatory response syndrome, gastroenteritis, neurogenic bladder, blood clots, weakness, spasms, and neurological defects. Intubated 5 times and has a feeding tube. Rebecca Quinnell, age 39, Pfizer, first dose. Heart palpitations, severe skin infection, menstrual cycle irregularities, and an autoimmune disease. Iris DeBoer, age 44, Pfizer, second dose. Spasms, brain damage, and severe nerve damage and pain. Charlotte Cretin, age 43, AstraZeneca, first dose. POTS, postural hypertension, a second-degree heart block, ventricular arrhythmias, small fiber neuropathy, nerve pain, encephalitis, confusion, and chronic fatigue syndrome. Kelly Lynn, age 37, Moderna, second dose. Multi-organ dysfunction, leading into failure caused by central nervous disconnect due to the damage in her brain. Janet Swanton, age 53, Pfizer, first dose. Seizures, speech impairment, brain damage, brain fog, confusion, and now she walks with a walker and needs assistance in dressing and feeding. Carrie Goddard, age 51, Moderna, second dose. Permanent neurological damage and an autoimmune disease.
So as I listen to all of you and your heartbreaking stories, I've seen every one of the things that you've mentioned personally and professionally. And I'm told by this organization that I'm not allowed to talk about the harms that are happening. And now we stand today with the college themselves abusing Ontario patients and Ontario doctors. It's sickening. My license was suspended on March 17th. I've been 3 months trying to get an urgent injunction through the court system, and I haven't been able to get in yet. They've changed lots of rules along the way. Isn't that convenient?
I'm Michael Alexander. I represent Dr. Luchku in Ontario. I represent Dr. Hoff, Dr. Hodgkinson, Dr. Trozy, Dr. Phillips, Dr. Milburn, Dr. Owen, Dr. Prink. And I am fighting colleges throughout the country, all of whom, like the CPSO, are tyrannizing doctors and exceeding their authority, and they're affecting doctors and your health care. The college controls the kind of treatment you get in Ontario. It is controlling 13 million people. They don't have the authority to do that, and we are here today to say no. The college has no lawful authority to regulate medical exemptions. As Dan Frey was saying, the college is working based on a recommendation from the Government of Ontario. The government's document is just a recommendation. It is not a law. So the government has recommended that doctors practice this way, and the college has turned it into a law. And they're holding it against doctors and threatening to take their licenses if they don't cooperate. They don't have the authority to take a recommendation and turn it into a law. It's wrong. Second problem, ivermectin. They say you can't prescribe it. It's harmful. That's not true. Ivermectin is still an authorized drug on the drug database of Health Canada. As long as a medication is authorized on that website, any doctor in the country, as a matter of federal law, can prescribe it. You have a right to ivermectin today if you want it. But the college says no. Our law says no. Well, that's not the law that matters. The college doesn't have the authority to say that to you. But again, if a doctor does this, prescribes ivermectin, he or she will lose a license. One more problem, the prohibition on free speech. You know, we have a Charter of Rights in this country. It guarantees freedom of expression to every one of us. That includes doctors who want to speak out about problems they have with our public healthcare system and our public healthcare policies.
Dad wasn't initially going to get the vaccine. He was like, there's not enough research on it, you know, it's too new. And then they came out and said, you don't get it, you don't travel. That was it. That was it. He was going, right? He is a Hall of Fame fastball player, and he's played for Canada. He's played all over the world, right? This man just is an invincible, great big thing that will not fall. Well, Pfizer got him. In April, he came through my door, and I looked at him, and his skin was that gray color. I don't even know how to explain it. It looks like death, like you're washed out, and there's like this tinge of gray to it. And I looked at him and I said, you got the vaccine. And he just looked at me and he went, ugh, you know, just stop with your anti-vax bullshit. I'm like, okay, whatever. We're not going to have the argument. Just kind of stay away from my kids for a little bit till we know, right? And anyways, he went and got the next one in June. And that's when he started getting these weird fainting spells. And between my sisters and I, we kind of put together a few episodes that had happened. And he was getting a little shaken, and it was unnerving for me too, because my dad doesn't get scared. Not ever. So we'll fast forward to December of just last year, December 3rd. He flew down with a bunch of friends to Mexico. You know, his first trip with friends out of this country. And by the next day, he had 2 strokes. He landed, he went for dinner, he got up, he had 2 strokes. He was in the hospital by December 5th. They found 2 massive clots in his neck, and they go in for surgery, and they find that the other side is 100% blocked. So now, in order to do anything, they've got to clear the worst side, obviously. So when they went in and did that, they released the other 2, and it caused the debilitating strokes. So he had bilateral infarct, which means he's had them on both sides of the hemispheres of his brain, which is obviously debilitating to anybody. But now you've got this 3rd one that runs deep, and they told me he would never move again. He would never communicate again. You know, he would never understand again. He would never do anything of relevance. They refused to give us his records. They refused to let us look at his records to determine what was going on in his blood, how high his levels were, and I sent the nurses in to go and figure it out. So we get there, and I can't go up. The nurse has gone up. She's collecting everything. She was a total rock star. She went up there and sprung my dad, literally. He's on the ivermectin. It's doing wonders. I threw out all of that garbage food that they feed him in the hospital. There was no way. That's what caused him to be on insulin. He's never been a diabetic in his life, and he's never needed insulin in his life. But he was on such a high level, it was disgusting. So we'll use those cans for target practice out in the back 40 there. And every day is getting better. I thank Canadian frontline nurses every day because they were a big part. Kristen, Sarah, Crystal, all of them are imperative in the next phase of our medical system. We're going to watch the fall of the corrupt garbage, and you're going to see the rise of an actual healthcare system.
Science is actually showing that it's not working. The vaccine hasn't worked. The lockdowns haven't worked. And yet they keep trying to tell us that it works, so go get it. Well, the last few people, if you want to call us few, we aren't going to get it. And I'm hoping our Prime Minister can and the leaders can finally realize that, yeah, we need to move on. The pandemic has ended, and we need to allow people that freedom again. Is it going to happen? Who knows?
Thank you so much for being here today. I taught philosophy, ethics in particular, at Huron College for 8 years, and I was terminated last September for questioning and refusing to comply with Huron and Western's vaccine mandate and doing it in a very public way. And the irony is that I was fired for doing exactly what I was hired to do. But I think what a lot of people don't know about me is that I didn't just teach here. I was also a student here. I did my PhD here, and I was an undergrad here. And so Western is very special to me. This is very meaningful to me. 25 years ago, when I was a student excited to come to Western, I was so excited to learn from the best. And I had the best. I had professors who didn't dare teach me what to think. They taught me how to think. They taught me how to be curious, how to question authority, how to demand evidence, how to trust myself, think for myself, and never be coerced. We keep hearing over and over again that this is about the science, follow the science. Well, the science isn't on their side anymore. Court documents have shown that there is no scientific rationale for the travel mandate. This isn't really about the science at the end of the day. Informed consent isn't about making the best choice from an objective point of view. Informed consent is about making the choice that reflects who you are, your deeply held beliefs and values, and the risks that you are willing to take in your life. Western, ironically, teaches courses at the undergraduate, graduate level, and in the medical school about informed consent. But penalizing students for not making the choice they want you to make is not consent, it's coercion. And now they're ambushing you less than 2 weeks before the start of class when you have very little options left. It's the institution that is supposed to be teaching you how to think for yourself that's doing this.
What we want here in our country is freedom to make our own choices. The vaccine and that is not a necessity. We don't believe it's a necessity either. At least that's what I think anyway. And I don't want to take it, and I don't want to be forced to take it either. And all we want is our freedom back. Open up the borders again. They talk about freezing our bank accounts. Well, truckers don't have anything in a bank account anyway because they're keeping us from our work. Says that's their problem. It's not our problem. They're the ones that are keeping us away from work. All we want is our freedom back.
In terms of the Give, Send, Go, and also with the GoFundMe originally, I don't think any of us came here with intentions of collecting money. I don't need a donation from anyone. All I need from people is to come here, if you can, and give us your support. Let us know that we're doing the right thing here. I think that means the most. So I never came here expecting to get $1, and that's not a motivation for me to stay here. So they as far as I'm concerned, they can keep it.
I'm not here to stay by the curb and the food to be bring to me. I'm not here to begging people for money. I'm not here for that. I just want the freedom, and I want to come back to work, to provide. I'm provider. I am provider, and I want to provide. And I'm sure every truck driver, every person here on these streets, they want to provide to this country. Because we are very hard-working people. Thank you very much. Here you go. Thank you. Thank you very much. Oh, I got $5. Thank you, sir. I got $5. You see, that's all they can do to support us somehow. And they know, everybody knows we are here. We don't work. We don't make money. But I'm not here for this. That's what I want people to understand. I feel so bad.
As you know, during the convoy, they froze the accounts of many people who had donated to the GoFundMe originally, then later the Give, Send, Go. GoFundMe, they reimbursed the money. Give, Send, Go through Adopt a Trucker ended up raising $10 million US. That money got frozen, and now the narrative was that these were people who FINTRAC, which is Canada's financial intelligence agency, had deemed to be supporting a terrorist network. Of course, this terrorist network under the narrative was the truckers, the far right. Now, ironically, FINTRAC's own deputy, Barry McKillop, came out and said, we've looked at where the funds have come from. It didn't come from Russia. Most of it did not come from overseas or out of the country. It came from everyday Canadians who are supporting a cause that they believe in. So right there, you have FINTRAC's own director shooting down that narrative.
So I think that there were people around the world who were fed up with COVID, who were upset and saw the demonstrations against COVID. And I believe that they just wanted to support the cause. It was their money, their own money. So it wasn't money that funded terrorism or that was in any way money laundering.
One of the other big lies that was going around was this endless talk about the war memorial and the desecration was the word they used of the war memorial. And there's this one clip, and the first time I saw it, I actually legitimately couldn't figure out what was the big issue. I'll be honest, and I've said it on my feeds before, call me ignorant, but I didn't know where the tomb of the unknown soldier was. Not surprising that this individual didn't even really know what they were doing. If you watch the clip, they get up and yell freedom and come back down, and I was really confused what that was desecration, especially at a time when we have statues being torn down, we have paint being splashed on them. That's desecration. That's defacing. That's a crime. to stand on a place that's potentially inappropriate to stand, and probably the person didn't even know what they were doing. I mean, again, wow, we did good if that's the worst thing that you could get out of that. And then from that point on, the footage will all prove and show that the veterans came together to protect that area, to make sure people knew what it represented and respected it.
Right on, guys. I'm Tom Murphy, local boy, Ottawa Valley, veteran, Royal Canadian Dragoons, and I'm here to fight for freedom. I'm pro-choice. I'm not anti-vax. I'm here to fight for my rights. You know, I did in the military. So did my ancestors, and we're here to make sure that holds up.
Wow, a lot of things similar. Dana Wilson here, 101st Airborne Division, 326 Medical Battalion, the Eagle Dust-Off flight medic, 4 years. Did Air National Guard flight training and came to Canada in '87 to start contract flying for Canadian military out of Camp Wainwright and Suffield for the British Army Training Support Unit. Can't fly anymore because I don't take their poison shot. I live in the Nunavut Northwest Territories, and I'm here to fight for freedom. 5 generations that have fought for freedom, and yeah, we're gonna continue to fight for freedom right here. We all took the oath, and we're all when the call came out, we all showed. We're all brothers and sisters, and yeah, we're here, and we're here till the end.
Let's go.
Right on.
Let's go.
Right
let's
on.
go.
Freedom.
Police have been facing criticism about how they've handled the situation so far, but tonight officers are moving in on one of the protest sites.
Shame! 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 Shame!
2 people have been arrested at a supply camp set up by demonstrators. Police removed fuel from that site with a row of tow trucks at the ready.
They cut off fuel supply, and then the next morning in the intersection where I was at, there was like a lineup probably 20 feet long, just fuel cans, you know, jerry cans stacked up against it. Like it's just beautiful. And then they just said, yeah, whoever wants one, take one and walk around with them, you know. The more cans walking around, the harder it is to figure out who's actually got fuel in it, you know. But I guess for the people that were bringing us fuel, it made it harder for them to get it to us. But they just worked all the harder, you know. When the pressure was on, they just up their game, and fuel was always there.
They put it out 12 o'clock, they weren't going to let fuel in, so what did we decide? We would get as much fuel to as many people who needed it as we could, right before the deadline. And sure enough, I see, you know, somebody being accosted over here. So what do? We get out and join him. He happened to have, luckily, empty jerry cans, so they didn't arrest him. They grabbed a hold of him though. So what do? We can join them, right? What can you do? Power in numbers, it's the only thing we can do. And sure enough, you know, I don't get anywhere near that blockade. Buddy's flying out here, you know, am I being detained? I think he said yes, because I guess mischief is something that we're doing. It doesn't feel like mischief to me, but I guess it is the law, you know, and I whatever, you're gonna try to grab a hold of me and I'm instinctually gonna back up, right? So what do? Latch onto you, right? Yeah, other than that, you know, the one cop seemed like he was itching for a fight. That's just what he wanted. There was a bunch of them out there that did not. You could see it in his eyes when you asked him, is what you're doing right? No, you know, you can see it. And then the other guy came in to de-escalate the situation. I imagine a bunch of them are here and supportive, and they probably would refuse a law, an order like this to arrest people over trying to help these boys get the fuel that they need. But there are definitely some of them out there that are itching for it. That guy was desperate for it. If I had given him any reason, I am sure I would be in the back of a cruiser, or the lot of us would be.
We were devising a strategy, so I had requested to get in a meeting with Mr. Peckford. And so the lawyers through the JCCF and other people had set that up. And as I was sitting there having coffee, talking to Brian Peckford about the charter, the very moment I was getting this personal, you know, history lesson on what was going through the minds of the people that were involved in drafting the Canadian Charter, our lawyer, Keith Wilson, walked into the room and said, yeah, he did it. He invoked the Emergency Act. Mr. Peckford just looked up at him. He's like, I didn't think he'd ever do it.
After discussing with Cabinet and caucus, after consultation with premiers from all provinces and territories, after speaking with opposition leaders, the federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations. I want to be very clear. The scope of these measures will be time-limited, geographically targeted, as well as reasonable and proportionate to the threats they are meant to address. The Emergencies Act will be used to strengthen and support law enforcement agencies at all levels across the country.
So my thoughts on the Prime Minister and his actions with the Emergencies Act is during my career I've had 3 leadership awards or commendations, and I'm not the best leader in the world, but I do have a decent sense about what a leader is, and our Prime Minister right now is not a leader. In my personal opinion, he is a coward. Now, when they invoked the Emergencies Act, I was actually one of the people that was happy because that was the final card that they could play. They could not play anything after that, and we were just going to see how deep they were going to go in using that Emergencies Act. And what I was telling the truckers and everyone who I was speaking with there is like, we were going to have some short-term pain for long-term gain, and that's exactly what happened. Everyone became aware of the lengths that the government's willing to go to quash any sort of opposition to them, and now it's fully exposed and the world's aware.
A prime minister who openly admires the Chinese basic dictatorship, who tramples on fundamental rights by persecuting and criminalizing his own citizens as terrorists just because they dared to stand up to his perverted concept of democracy, should not be allowed to speak in this House at all. Mr. Trudeau, you are a disgrace for any democracy. Please spare us your presence. Thank you.
When you look at the Emergency Act, there's 3 conditions of the Emergency Act, first of all. You have to prove that you are disrupting international border. Ottawa's nowhere near a border. You have to disrupt or block key critical infrastructure. Well, we were on a public street, so nothing was blocked. The third thing is you had to show up with the intention of committing violence. And the only people that showed up to commit violence intentionally was the police in this country.
I talked to I don't know how many police, and you'd have a conversation. How's it going, guys? Great. You'd be surprised how many of them said, just here because I have to. You know, this is great. Most peaceful thing I've ever seen, right? But it was peaceful until the last weekend.
The Monday, he brought in the Emergencies Act. Tuesday, it was instated. We sat in Ottawa holding our breaths because we knew people came to Ottawa on Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We knew they went home on Monday. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, our numbers are down in Ottawa. We figured if they were going to attack, it was going to be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Thursday came and went, no trouble. We were celebrating at the Swiss. We were like, yes, everybody's coming tomorrow. We're going to be okay. You know, we all let out a sigh of relief and we were like, okay. But then Tamara got arrested and then Danny got arrested. And we started to hold our breaths again, going, what is going on?
The news says that I'm to be arrested, so I'm here if you want me. Is that true? Okay.
No arrest for Mr. Okay. Hey, brother, we love you, eh?
We love you, brother!
Oh my God!
Fire the nation, Danny!
Now, was that violent?
We knew that the police were going to attack. They had been signaling very, very strongly without actually coming out and saying, hey, we're coming for you. But they had issued a blue public notice and then a red public notice saying that, you know, we had to clear the area. So we knew, I mean, it was pretty obvious that they were coming to get us. What we were hoping to do was we produced a document called Roadmap to Freedom. We did a couple live streams on it. We were trying to get the Conservative Party to listen and to seize upon an opportunity to get an emergency debate and to stop the police from attacking. Well, Conservative Party showed very little interest whatsoever in even engaging us. Other than one time, I think Candice Bergen did a photo op at a little cafe with a couple of truckers, and the very next day went into the House of Commons and said, okay, truckers, you've proven your point, now go home.
To all of you who are taking part in the protests, I believe the time has come for you to take down the barricades, stop the disruptive action, and come together.
So we got no support of any substance whatsoever from the Conservative Party. Forget the Bloc, and we all know the NDP, and the big bad guy in this story is the Liberal Prime Minister. But we knew that they were going to come. We just didn't expect that they were going to come with that level of force, with that level of violence, and that they were going to deploy what seems to me to be the worst police of the worst that they could possibly round up and bring into Ottawa. They had the Quebec Provincial Police, they had OPP, RCMP, they had everybody. I mean, it was really disturbing when I was standing there when I'm looking at an RCMP guy and he's got a silencer on his assault rifle, full chest rig, helmet, like full tactical gear, for unarmed civilians.
I was in a little bit of denial myself, even though you saw it happening in Australia and everywhere else, knowing that it absolutely could come here, there's still that bit of a denial that but how could it? We've been so peaceful this whole time. How could it actually come to this point? So we were trying to hold that line, linking arms. And finally we stepped back a bit. And I just remember this one man in his yellow truck looked out at us and he says, "You can't leave me. Don't leave me," pleading with us. And we're all confused, not knowing what to do as, the officers are advancing at us. And next thing we know, his window's getting broken and he's dragged out of his truck. And my heart broke because I was thinking they just stood here, or they were here in their trucks for 3 weeks with us and, fighting for us. And do we just, leave him? So my heart broke for this man. But then someone told us to look behind us. We thought we were holding this line, not knowing that literally there was an entire military event happening all around us. That's when I first saw for the first time, the Quebec riot police. And we just looked around and we're just oh, we are completely surrounded.
And the guys came in with their gas masks and their goggles and the dark uniforms. So we knew it was going to go down. Something was going to go down. And then they started shouting, "Push back, push back." So we, as the crowd, started to move because the police are now pushing us with their batons in their hands. And then I see this arm come over top of the officer that's in front of me, over him, and he's got a black can in it, this arm, and he just starts spraying the crowd. And then all of a sudden I felt the side of my face start to burn. And then it kind of traveled slowly across my face, and next thing I know, it was in my eye was on fire, I couldn't see, and then it had traveled to my other eye, and I just started yelling, I've been maced, I can't see, my eyes are burning, I can't see. And the guy behind me who's got me, he's like, "Don't worry about it, I got you, just follow me, I'm gonna dance you out of this crowd." And he did. He got me to safety. I can hear other people screaming in the crowd. And more people were coming out and they were yelling, "I need help, I need a medic." So I told them to go deal with them, that I was fine, I'd be okay. And then my friends come running up that I had been on the stage with, and they were in the Sheraton Hotel and were watching my live and saw me get sprayed, so they threw their stuff on to come out and find me. Probably a good thing they did, because I went into shock after that. My body started shaking. I wasn't cold, but I couldn't stop shaking. I was uncontrollably shaking, and they started rubbing down my body. I don't know, 15-20 minutes, I guess, and then I started to relax, and I grabbed my phone and said, "I need back in there." And they're like, "Are you kidding me? You need to get out of here." I'm like, "No, the people need to see the truth." And I made them help me up onto a flower pot, and I started filming again. And I probably stayed out there for another hour to 2 hours before I finally decided that I needed to go in and get warm. And then after an hour of being in the Sheraton, and I ran into some people in the Sheraton, and I went to the washroom, and I had a really good cry. That's when I decided to call it a night and went back to the Swiss.
The trucks that they came up on, If it had a bunk on it, like if they couldn't directly see in the window and check to see if somebody was in it, they instantly went for the windows. They didn't even check if the doors were unlocked or nothing. The hammer went straight for the windows. So I had originally intended to make it as hard as possible for them to get to move my truck. I was gonna, lock the doors, roll up the windows and everything, take my keys with me. At that point I was like, there's no use in doing that because they're just gonna end up breaking my windows. So I rolled the windows down, I unlocked my doors, and I just stood there waiting for them to get there. When they did get to my truck, I had my heart set on not voluntarily walking away. So they were gonna either take me away or push me out of the way. And so that's what they did. So they pushed me up against a buddy of mine, Mike's truck. So at that point, my back is up against the bumper of the truck, and all the police officers are like surrounding me and they're telling me to move. At that point I was already wanting to move, because they got their batons out, poking me, hitting me and stuff. While they're hitting me with their batons, all of a sudden I get a surprise shot of pepper spray in my eyes. And there's actually a picture out there, and it's got me right on the nose at that point when somebody took the picture. But they got my whole face, and then they ended up kicking the feet out from under me. So I went down into a pile of snow. That's when the crowd that was, they always made a line right in front of the cops. So they actually pulled me out and got me out behind the supporter line. And my brother ended up finding me and walked me back to my room where I could wash up and heal up. So yeah, just going reliving that is feels weird.
They were shooting rubber bullets, they were pepper spraying us, they were beating us with batons, and out of nowhere they bring in these horses. Okay, and the horses were sitting back for quite a while, and then all of a sudden they opened up one side of the line that they had with all these police officers, and they let horses through. My jaw, my heart dropped. I was thinking, look how many people are in this crowd, and they're bringing horses through? I was this close to running up and literally getting in front of the horses to, shield people myself, and I realized that I wouldn't stand a chance. I would not have stood a chance. They would have killed me. And, so I backed off a little bit off the line, and I was standing there with my camera, and next thing I know, the police trampled this old woman. It was the most shocking thing I've ever seen. I didn't know her at the time. I know she's from the Mohawk tribe. She is another indigenous woman that was there, and they completely trampled her. I thought she died. I was so worried for her. The police were not willing to help with medical aid, anything. They were willing to hurt us, but not even provide us help. Like, what if she did die? What if she was bleeding out there? Like, they weren't willing to even help us.
And that same day, the Ottawa police put out a tweet saying, regarding the horse incident, a couple of people were knocked over, but they were okay. And so first they lied about it, but then they gaslit the public by flipping around saying, but there was an incident where one of the protesters threw a bike at the horse, but the horse remains uninjured.
That's bullshit. Half those cops didn't want to be there, though. That's one thing. You could read their eyes. The other half were out for blood. These are the type of people that like beating people. These are the people who have, these authoritarian disorders. They were out to hurt people. They were fully armed. I seen one of them beating a man with the butt of his gun. Like, this is something you do in war times, okay? This is something you do when it's life or death. Not a peaceful Canadian protest. You do not beat a man, unarmed on the ground.
They should have not been hit to the ground by horses and batons when they were themselves doing nothing violent. Nothing violent whatsoever. Simply a peaceful concern, asking all of society, ultimately all of the US and Europe, please look at the fact that we're just being reasonable here. Can we please be let to live our lives in a safe manner? And that's who those people were. They were polite, they were kind, they were in no way xenophobic or racist. My goodness, I saw people of all colors, all circumstances, but I would say simply all smiles and all kindness. Those were the people, the truckers, who came to Ottawa, and they should be thought of positively as these years go forward. They have awakened us. They listened to the statistics. They listened to the real medical facts that Dr. Paul Alexander and others gave us. So we're thankful to Dr. Alexander. We're thankful to the people who responded to him. We're thankful to the many, many scientists. He is one of many, many scientists who have woken us all up to this.
The trucker has 100% of the science on their side. It is a government that is wrong. Long live the Canadian trucker!
We came home thinking we lost, right? And you didn't get what you were looking for. But the people of Niagara, in short order, organized a homecoming party. And it was unbelievable. All the way from Grimsby to Smithville, the streets were lined with cars and people, fireworks going off, to the point where I just kept going, wow. That's all I could say was wow, right? And that did give you a sense of feeling that, okay, we didn't lose. You know, we woke people up. We wanted more. We didn't get it all. But the world knows what's going on now. And yeah, you don't need to be treated like a hero at all. But the general public loved what you did. And that means a lot.
It was a welcoming that I never would have expected. Good question. Oh, coming home and seeing that crowd was awesome. It took us 51 minutes to get past that crowd. Just beautiful. I was thankful I did it. Thankful we went there, and thankful we came home.
So I stayed back in Ottawa for a few more days. I just felt the need to decompress and really just kind of reflect on what we had just experienced, like from this like massive high to this low to everything going on. So I stayed back a few more days until I felt, ready, said goodbyes, and needed to let go of whatever was in Ottawa, and returned home on the Wednesday. And as I was coming home, I guess some girlfriends had organized a welcome home at the Flying J here in London. And I didn't really know what to expect or how I was going to feel. I was kind of just looking forward to seeing everyone. But when I pulled up and saw everyone and the flags and the signs, and I just broke down crying immediately. It was completely overwhelming, really. Just the amount of love and support that people were showing me, not even realizing, I guess, the impact I had made on people's lives of being there in Ottawa and just trying to show the truth and being a part of everything. And I'm forever thankful for everyone that is here and that has supported me and encouraged me and, keeps me going. I think this catastrophic event has stopped us and allowed us to really reflect on what matters and maybe the life that we should be living and how we can change our path and head to, a more loving life, more connected to nature and each other and our neighbors. But for the kids, there's a lot of damage happening to our children, especially with the lockdowns, the loss of activities, support, social interactions, the fear that we have put on our kids, that they are walking threats of disease that can kill someone. I heard a story of someone, that their kid tested positive for COVID and broke down in tears, thinking, they were gonna kill someone or something was gonna happen. There's a lot of damage that has been done, so we have a lot of work ahead of ourselves to do.
So one thing, we're definitely seeing is this narrative is just completely falling apart if the public is willing to open their mind to realize that, hey, you know what? Governments can manipulate and perhaps lie to, forward their agendas. And one of the most glaring examples is Minister Mark Mendocino saying, I believe 13 times in Parliament that the municipal, provincial, and federal police all pleaded with him to call in the Emergencies Act. And you know what? There was a memo that was received by him from the various police forces that said, no, we believe that this protest is peaceful, it's safe, no need to invoke the Emergencies Act. And he has been called out on it several times. It's incredible. The guy lied in the House of Commons multiple times and has still not yet resigned. This is the type of government we're now living in.
We use this term communism, socialism, capitalism, all these isms. I don't think it's any of those anymore. I don't think we can say that it's an ism of any kind other than to say it's globalism. And we don't really fit the classical definition of the communism, socialisms. We're now globalism. We are not really in charge of our own sovereignty at this point. I don't know what our government has turned into. It's not something that I recognize. I don't even know what it is. It's just incredible to see how badly Canada is no longer glorious and free. We have a chance. We have a chance to stop this. But it's going to take political action. And it's going to take the public, the Canadian people, to rise up and stand up peacefully against the federal government and end these mandates and make reparations. And, only then will we be able to actually heal this country. Until we get our rights restored, until we get the errors of the last 2+ years corrected, and until we get an actual public inquiry and a justification by the federal government as to how they could have done this, and we put things into place to stop it from ever happening again, we will never be able to heal as a nation until all those things are done first.
What came out of Ottawa wasn't mandates ending, but it was unification of Canada. We all remember what it's like to be Canadian. And we united the East Coast with the West Coast, the English with the French. And as a bonus, we brought the world into our fight. The world took notice. And the world is standing up with us now. And there's convoys happening everywhere in every country. And we all now know we're fighting the exact same fight. It's a global fight. And in order to win, we need to come together globally. And that's what came out of Ottawa. Ottawa was a success. It was a failure for Justin Trudeau. It was a success for Canadians.
My name's Joshua Bigger, and I'm from Camden, Ontario. Right now we're in Smithville, and I met all these beautiful people a few weeks ago in Ottawa at the Truckers Convoy, and I found that most people were just wanting to be around people after 2 years, staying 6 feet apart. The human body needs to be closer to that with other people. There's an aura around every human being, and by separating ourselves that far, we really hurt the psyche of humanity, especially in this country. To be honest, Ottawa changed a lot of people's life, and I'm actually truly blessed to be part of that. And I hope by these people making the videos and content that people can actually see what came out of it, and that we keep doing this. And this doesn't stop here. We get communities growing all over the country, and hopefully with this happening that we can bring our country back together and become what Canada used to be. You know, a true country that was based on family values and you know, good-hearted Canadians of any ethnic group too. That's the best part about Canada. It's so diverse. And being in Ottawa, you got to see that. Canada came alive again, and I called it being born again Canadian in Ottawa that day on Parliament Hill. Throughout the 10 days I was there, we were there for the last good weekend where there's family fun. Oh yeah, little kids like this running around with bouncy gyms. These kids are our future, and if we don't fight and stand up for what's theirs, they will have nothing left. Remember, peace, love, and unity, everybody, and God bless.